The marble lobby was quiet, too quiet for a place where decisions about people's lives were made. She stood there, breath still steady from her morning run. Worn sneakers, baseball cap, no makeup, just questions and memories. "Ma'am, this really isn't the place for customer feedback," the manager said, glancing at her clothes. "Unless you're here to make a deposit of gym towels," another chuckled. They didn't see her. Not really. Not the woman who once built a business from scratch. Not the one who helped half the town when the library nearly closed. But she didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just said softly, "You're about to make the biggest mistake of your careers." And when the doors behind her opened, the room fell silent. Because the man walking in wasn't just her husband. He was the man who owned their future. Vanessa Mitchell didn't look like someone you'd expect to see in a bank lobby on a Monday morning. Her hair, silver with time, was pulled into a low ponytail that slipped beneath a navy cap. Her t-shirt clung slightly with sweat from the jog she hadn't planned to interrupt. And yet, here she was, standing in front of the Oak Ridge Community Bank, holding a notice that had changed her morning. And maybe more than that, the town had always moved slowly. Oak Ridge wasn't the kind of place where you worried about chains moving in or corner stores closing. People said hello on the street. Folks remembered birthdays. But this notice, the bright yellow paper tacked to the community board, said that was about to change. 30 days, she had whispered to herself. That's how long the bank had before being absorbed by National Financial Group, a corporation known more for profits than people. Vanessa hadn't even gone home to change. Some things she believed mattered more than appearances. She entered through the glass doors just as the staff was setting up for the day. The marble tiles were polished to a shine, the air smelled faintly of pine cleaner, and the suits were already in place, pressed, ready, indifferent. The young receptionist barely looked up when Vanessa approached. "Good morning," Vanessa said, her voice calm. "I'd like to speak with your branch manager about the upcoming closure." "Do you have an appointment?" the receptionist asked, her polite tone worn thin. "No," Vanessa replied, "but I think it's important." There was a pause, the kind where people weigh appearances before purpose. The receptionist picked up the phone, whispered something, and gestured to a row of chairs. "Someone will be with you shortly." Vanessa sat, feeling the stares. Her old running shoes creaked against the leather seat. Somewhere behind her, someone murmured something about entitled customers. Another chuckled. She looked at the framed photographs on the wall. Black and white images of Oak Ridge in the 1950s. The same bank behind a ribbon-cutting ceremony. A child holding his first savings passbook. 15 minutes passed before a tall woman in a tailored gray suit appeared. "I'm Patricia Kensington, branch manager," she said briskly. "I understand you have questions." Vanessa stood. "Actually, I'm here to make an offer." Patricia blinked. "An offer? To purchase the bank?" There was silence. Then a small laugh. Patricia's eyes drifted over Vanessa's appearance. "Ms. Mitchell, Vanessa Mitchell." The name didn't seem to register. Patricia offered a tight smile. "We'll entertain your concerns briefly, Ms. Mitchell." And as she led Vanessa into her office, the quiet weight of dismissal filled the air. But Vanessa didn't flinch. Not yet. She knew what they didn't. The story was only just beginning. The office smelled of lavender polish and something colder. Formality, maybe. The kind of place where real decisions were supposed to happen. But Vanessa had been in enough rooms like this to know that sometimes the real decisions were made long before you even sat down. Patricia Kensington motioned toward a single chair across from her massive glass desk. Vanessa took it without hesitation. The manager, however, remained standing for a moment longer than necessary. A small gesture meant to remind Vanessa of who had the upper hand. "So," Patricia began, sitting and folding her hands neatly, "you're here to purchase the bank?" Vanessa nodded. "Yes, I believe there's still time before the acquisition is finalized." Patricia let out a breath, somewhere between amusement and disbelief. "Ms. Mitchell, this is a multi-million-dollar institution. We're not talking about buying a coffee shop or a corner bakery." Vanessa didn't blink. "I'm aware of the scale." "Are you? Because, with all due respect, you're dressed like someone who just finished a run through the park." Vanessa's voice stayed steady. That's because I did. Patricia raised an eyebrow. And now you'd like to purchase a bank? Yes. A short silence followed. Outside the glass wall, a few employees had noticed the unusual guest seated in the manager's office. One man in a pinstripe suit leaned slightly closer to the partition, pretending to straighten a stack of papers while eavesdropping. Ms. Mitchell, Patricia said finally, the National Financial Group has already made a $12 million offer. The papers are nearly ready. Unless you can make a better one and back it up with credentials and capital, I'm afraid we're done here. I'm prepared to offer 15. The number hung in the air, almost absurd in its calm delivery. Patricia blinked. 15 million? Vanessa gave a slight nod. Yes. In full, Patricia paused. Then she laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly, but with the kind of practiced dismissal that comes from years of assuming who belongs and who doesn't. And how exactly would you fund this offer? A community bake sale? Some kind of fundraiser through your local church group? Vanessa didn't smile. My husband and I have the necessary resources. That made Patricia pause again, only briefly, but long enough for Vanessa to notice. And your husband, Patricia asked, does he work in finance? Yes. Well, I suppose that makes things slightly more interesting. Does he manage a branch or he owns one? Patricia's expression hardened. She was trying to find the line between mockery and protocol, and failing. The tone in the room had shifted just slightly, but Vanessa felt it. The doubt had turned defensive. Ms. Mitchell, Patricia said at last, voice clipped, I'm going to be honest with you. Even if somehow you had that kind of capital, there are procedures, legal teams, regulatory hurdles. It's not just a matter of offering a number and getting keys to the vault. I understand, Vanessa said, but I also understand what it means when a bank like this is sold to a corporate entity that doesn't care about the people it serves. Patricia leaned back. That's business. No, Vanessa said quietly. That's abandonment. Outside the glass, someone laughed. Someone else, young, maybe an intern, smirked and whispered to a colleague. She thinks she's Oprah or something. Patricia's lips curled ever so slightly. She was letting the moment play out. A performance. Let the strange woman speak her piece, then move her along. Perhaps if you came back with proper documentation, Patricia said, and in something a little more appropriate, we could give your offer more serious consideration. Vanessa didn't move. She didn't look down at her clothes. She looked straight ahead. I came as I am, because that's how this community knows me. I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to protect something that matters. Patricia's smile vanished completely now. She stood. I think we're done. Vanessa rose slowly, gathered her bag, and turned toward the door, then paused. Before I go, she said, her voice steady but clear enough to reach beyond the glass walls, who should I contact at National Financial about my offer? Patricia scoffed. If you must waste more time, you can try the regional director, James Wilson. Though I assure you, he'll have even less patience for this than I do. But the sound of her name, James Wilson, had barely left her lips when the lobby doors opened. The echo of dress shoes on marble. A hush, heads turning. Vanessa smiled softly. She didn't have to say a word, because her husband had arrived, and everything was about to change. The lobby didn't make a sound, not right away. All at once, the rustle of suits, the shuffle of papers, the low hum of side chatter, stopped. Even the clock on the wall seemed to tick more quietly. A man had stepped through the glass doors, tall, composed, carrying the quiet weight of someone unbothered by noise. His silver hair was neatly parted, the sharp lines of his charcoal gray suit falling clean across his shoulders. A glint of gold flashed from his cufflinks, subtle but unmistakable. His eyes, the color of still water, scanned the room and landed on one person. Vanessa. He walked across the marble floor as if he owned it, because in more ways than one he did. Patricia Kensington froze in place, her hand still on the doorframe of her office. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. The man didn't stop until he reached Vanessa, who turned to him without surprise, only with a quiet warmth that had clearly known him for years. You didn't have to come, she said softly. Meetings wrapped early, he replied. And I figured someone should hear your offer properly. His voice was low even, but it carried. Every banker, every employee, every intern standing frozen nearby heard it. The room leaned in. Patricia blinked hard and finally managed to step forward. Mr. Mitchell? She asked, half a question, half a hope. The man nodded, not offering a hand. Yes, he said calmly. Richard Mitchell. If the name alone didn't set off alarm bells, the reactions around the room did. One young associate dropped a pen. An older executive stood straighter, eyes wide. James Wilson, the regional director, emerged from the corridor like he'd been summoned by a bell. His face shifted in real time, from curious to cautious, then to panic. Mr. Mitchell, James said quickly, extending a hand. We had no idea. I mean, what a surprise. Welcome, sir. Richard didn't take the hand. I understand you've been speaking with my wife, he said, nodding toward Vanessa, about acquiring this institution. Vanessa stood slightly behind him now, but her presence filled the room. Patricia looked like the floor had disappeared beneath her. Your wife? She repeated, her gaze bouncing between Vanessa's jogging shoes and Richard's bespoke suit, like her brain couldn't reconcile the two. That's correct, Richard replied. If I may, James said, still scrambling to recover, this has all been a misunderstanding. Had we known... Richard raised a hand just slightly. Would it have changed how you treated her? He asked. Silence. No one answered. No one dared. Mrs. Mitchell made a very reasonable offer, Richard continued, and from what I gather, she wasn't even given the courtesy of a proper conversation. James tugged nervously at his collar. Well, sir, with all due respect, the offer was unexpected, and in fairness, it lacked what? Richard interrupted gently. Paperwork? Credentials? Or was it just the fact she walked in wearing sneakers? You could hear the air conditioner humming again. That's how quiet it had become. Patricia stepped forward, the plastic smile returning to her lips like it had never left. Mr. Mitchell, of course we welcome all community members. Today was regrettable. Vanessa spoke now, her voice soft but resonant. Regrettable is suggesting I take a financial literacy class. Regrettable is smirking while calling security. Regrettable is assuming a woman in running shoes is incapable of writing a check. James cleared his throat. Mrs. Mitchell, I assure you, our staff is trained to be professional, and they were, Vanessa cut in gently, until they decided I didn't look like money. There it was, the thing no one wanted to name, spoken without anger, just clarity. Richard reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a small white card. He handed it to James. My legal team will be in touch, he said. We're prepared to offer $14 million in full today. James blinked. 14? He asked, voice slightly cracked. Your wife said 15. Richard looked around the room, his eyes passing over every face, the ones that had laughed, whispered, dismissed. The discount, he said simply, reflects the hospitality she received. A few mouths opened, but no one spoke. Vanessa turned and looked at the framed photos on the wall again, the ones she'd stared at while waiting in silence. The grand opening, the community parades, the smiling children holding savings books. This bank wasn't just numbers on a screen, she said, voice steady. It was people, trust, legacy, and it deserves better than what I saw here today. From behind the teller desk, a middle-aged woman stepped forward, timidly, hands clasped. Mrs. Mitchell, she said, voice trembling. My name's Nancy. I've worked here 22 years. I just want to say, not all of us treated you that way. Some of us do care about our customers, about this town. Vanessa smiled, genuine and warm. I believe you, Nancy, and that's exactly why this bank is worth saving. They turned to leave. No one stopped them. The suits parted like waves, eyes lowered, back straight. Richard held the door open for his wife, but before stepping out, he paused. Without turning back, he spoke in a calm, final voice. When the acquisition is complete, we'll be reviewing staffing. I suggest everyone here takes a moment to reflect on how they represent this institution. The glass doors shut behind them with a soft, final click. Outside, the street was bright, the morning air still cool. Vanessa reached for her husband's hand. So much for a peaceful run, Richard chuckled. You never could resist rewriting the ending. By noon the next day, it was no longer just a quiet story whispered across marble floors. Someone had filmed it. Not all of it, just enough. The video began with the sound of polished shoes on marble and a hush falling over the bank lobby. A woman's calm voice carried through the recording, sharp and steady. Would it have changed how you treated her? And then came the reveal, Richard Mitchell, his name captioned on the screen, standing beside his wife as the bank staff watched in silence. The clip ended with the words that would be quoted in headlines. The discount reflects the hospitality she received. No music, no flashy cuts, just truth. It started as a local post, a Facebook share from someone's aunt. Then someone clipped it to TikTok, then Reddit, then YouTube. By evening, the headline had gone national. Woman in running shoes offers $15 million for community bank, gets laughed at, then her billionaire husband walks in. But it wasn't the money that caught people's attention. It was her silence, her composure, her refusal to explain herself until the right moment. And then her reason. Clips circulated of Vanessa standing in the center of the lobby, speaking not with bitterness, but with quiet conviction. This bank wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was people, trust, legacy. That sentence, repeated over soft piano music on dozens of re-edits, made its way into morning talk shows, reaction videos, and even one church sermon. But for Vanessa, the internet noise didn't mean much. She didn't have social media. She didn't even carry her phone half the time. What mattered to her wasn't likes or views. It was the voicemail from Mrs. Henderson's daughter, thanking her for fighting for the only bank her mother could still walk to. It was the letter left on her porch by Sam Torres, the restaurant owner who wrote, "You're the reason I'm still in business, and I didn't even know your name until today." It was the library staff who sent flowers, reminding her of another fight, another time, when she'd raised money through bake sales and town halls to save the children's reading room. She didn't ask for the attention, but it came anyway. 3 days after the video went viral, a reporter from the Oak Ridge Chronicle called. Vanessa declined the interview. "This isn't about me," she said, but the story had taken root. People needed it, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt true. In a world where titles shouted louder than kindness, where appearance too often shaped judgment, Vanessa's quiet resistance was a kind of rebellion. Not with fists, not with shouting, just presence. She became, slowly, a symbol. Not one she asked for, but one people gave her. Local businesses began taping quotes from her speech to their windows. The farmers market printed shirts that read, "Respect isn't earned by your shoes, it's earned by your values." Even the church marquee, usually reserved for Bible verses, displayed, "Never underestimate a woman in running shoes." And at the center of it all, Vanessa kept running. Each morning she laced up her old sneakers, tucked her hair under the same navy cap, and made her way down the same winding path through Miller Park. She didn't jog faster. She didn't hold her chin higher. She didn't need to. But now as she passed, people waved longer. Some called out, "Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. You showed them how we do things around here. God bless you, Vanessa." And still, she'd smile, offer a small wave, and keep going. The fame didn't flatter her. If anything, it made her quieter. It was Richard who noticed the deeper shift. One evening, as they sat on their back porch, the air warm with the smell of magnolias, he turned to her. "You know," he said, "you've started something." She shook her head gently. "Number, I just finished something they thought I wouldn't." "Maybe, but you reminded people what matters. Dignity, memory, place." She looked out across the yard, where the light caught the top of the fence like gold. "I didn't come to prove anything," she said. "I came because they were forgetting the people who built that bank." Richard reached over, his fingers wrapping around hers. "And now they'll never forget you." She didn't answer. Not right away. Just let the moment settle, like dusk. Behind them, the headlines continued. National Financial issued a formal apology. Patricia Kensington was placed on administrative review. James Wilson was reassigned, quietly. But none of that mattered more than the letter Vanessa received a week later. It was handwritten. No return address. Dear Mrs. Mitchell, I watched what happened. I've worked in finance for 42 years, and I've never seen someone speak with that much grace in the face of so much arrogance. Thank you for reminding us what it means to lead. Sincerely, a banker who's trying to do better. Vanessa folded the letter carefully and placed it in the kitchen drawer next to the family photos. She didn't need recognition. She needed people to remember, not her, but what kindness looked like, what real strength sounded like, and how change didn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes, it walked in wearing sneakers. The bank officially changed hands on a Friday. There was no press release, no champagne, just a quiet exchange of keys and a line of employees standing a little straighter than usual. The new sign read, Oak Ridge Community Bank, proudly independent. Inside, a few familiar faces remained. People like Nancy, who knew every customer's name without looking at a screen. The ones who had stayed for the right reasons were invited to stay longer. The rest had moved on. Vanessa didn't change much. She still jogged every morning, still wore that same old navy cap, still waved to neighbors like nothing had happened. But those who passed her now, young and old, held their greetings a second longer. There was something different in the way people looked at her. Not fame, not awe, just respect. One Sunday, a young mother stopped her outside the bakery. You know, she said, holding her daughter's hand, my little girl asked me what courage looks like. I told her, it looks like a woman in sneakers who doesn't raise her voice, even when the room is laughing. Vanessa smiled softly and nodded. She didn't need applause. She just needed people to remember. Respect isn't something you dress for. It's something you stand for. In a world that often rushes to judge by appearance, wealth, or status, this story reminds us that true dignity lives in how we treat one another, especially when no one is watching. Vanessa didn't raise her voice. She didn't demand attention. She stood quietly, firmly, and let her values speak louder than any outfit, title, or bank account ever could. If this touching story moved you, take a moment to reflect. Have you ever been misjudged by how you looked? Have you ever stood up, not with anger, but with quiet strength, for something that mattered? These are the emotional stories we carry through life, the ones that don't just pass, but stay, the ones that remind us of who we are and who we still want to be. At Narrated Stories, we believe in sharing moments like these, stories of unraveled fates, quiet courage, and unexpected justice, because sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the softest voices. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in decency, in community, in standing tall, even in sneakers. Leave a comment below. What part of Vanessa's story stayed with you most? And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories, real-life inspiration, and narrated stories that honor quiet power every single week. Because respect shouldn't be earned by wealth. It should be earned by how we carry ourselves.